Hey, Michelle, how are you doing? Here, let me re-upload the notes real quick. Sorry. And then I'll upload your assignment right now. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Hi, Ghislaine, how are you? Go ahead and download the notes and then it's timing me out. Sorry. The file is not going through. Well, maybe it did. Hold on. Okay. Let me resubmit the notes file and see if that's gonna work. Okay, it should be there now. And then I'm gonna go ahead and upload the assignment now. Sorry. So we are gonna cover 13, and then we are going to use some of the tools to be able to find images and text. So this is kind of cool for forensic and using Python or Python module. Okay, let me fix the configuration for here and ensure that it's okay. So, and then next week we're going to cover encryption. Just gotta make sure the due dates are correct. Okay, so this is a fairly short chapter. It's, let me double check and make sure that you have. Okay, so let me screen share with you. We just have to do a short assignments, and then in the lab, we're gonna play with it a little bit more. There are a couple of scripts that we're gonna work on today as far as using some of the modules and looking for the details about things. And then, so if you are doing forensic for files and things like that, or even images, you can utilize some of the tools that's talked about in this particular chapter. Okay. All right, let me go to my notes now. And then I need to revise my notes, and I'll re-upload another version in a little bit. Sorry, Okay, so let's start with looking at some of the things that we can find as far as geolocations and file information. So we'll start with geolocation, and geolocation can be important pertaining to the physical servers or the data center, or how that location is tied to an actual IP address. Now, as you know, that most companies use hosting organizations or services. And so we can at least identify that, right, using some of the resources. So one of the website that we can visit is, I provided the link there, called Hacker Target. And this is, we can simply input an IP address like a .8.8.8, which belongs to Google. Right, and it will give you information about the longitude and the latitude, where that is on Earth, right? So you can use an IP address to really look at where that would be. Some organization would have more details included in this particular, in the information that's provided from this website. Now you can build a script to do the same thing using API, and we'll touch a little bit on that. So in the, let me open my, in the first question, it asks you to use the website and then be able to access that website. And I want you to look up this IP address. So we're going to use 23.38.185.166. Okay, let me zoom in. Okay, so we're going to use this IP address. And we want to see who that is or where that is on Earth. Okay, so coming back here, we can put in this IP address. And it will tell us that this is in Texas, and the city is Dallas. It gives you our latitude and longitude. So the geolocation is provided here using the IP address. And so you can use a web tool this way. Or what you can do is you can write a script in example 1, as shown in example 1. So the website that we were using, right, is using GeoIP, and there are modules that are created using free GeoIP. So free GeoIP is, you can visit ipbase.com and it will give you some information so you can implement the API, which is going to require the app to be able to give you some geolocation. So the applications that's using this, right, it's using some of the open source tool, and this is what we would see from the Python side, how we can implement the module to be able to give us a geolocation for specific IP. Okay, so in the next part, you would see here in the example 1, a script that we can write is, it would use this request module. And in this one, what we have is we are going to define a class, and in that we would have functions. The member functions, or in the function, we're able to obtain latitude, longitude, country, and city, very similar to the website that you just looked at. And then in addition to that, we would have time zone, and of course, we have the IP address where we would use that to look up the information. Now, for the location, it's going to give us, right, what are the members here. So we instantiated country, cities, time zone address, IP address, and we would use the get location function or method to be able to output that. Okay. So in this script, you are using JSON, and with JSON, you will be able to get more on the organized text in the output. Okay. Now you can run this in IDE, just make sure that your IDE is supporting Python and bring in the module. So, you know, if you run it on Linux, you just have to pip install the module. Or if you're running it in a Python-based IDE, just make sure that you bring in the packages, okay? So using JSON, we're going to be able to parse the text, and here we simply define the IP address. So in the main, we're going to call, right? And for the IP, it's going to be, because it's dictionary based, you want to also be able to print out the information about the IP address in a dictionary format. Okay, so the IP, we're going to use the IP to geo. This is where we would pull in the package, right? And then be able to use a string for the IP. So let me come back over here. So this is the script. Let me clear this. And I'm using Tawny, so you can use other IDE if you wish. Since request is already come with the built-in Python libraries, we can simply run this. Okay. And let me pull this up so you can see. So for the IP 888.8.8.8, right, which belongs to Google, we would get the latitude, the longitude, country, city. It'll say here Mountain View. Remember from the website, it's hidden on the website where we won't be able to see. On the time zone, it tells us Los Angeles. The IP address, that's what we had hard-coded into the script, and then the country code. So definitely using a script, you can get more information from a certain IP address compared to using some of the freely available web services. Okay, so using free GeoIP, and we integrate this with this particular service that's available on the web, and we'll be able to write the script for that. Okay, any question? So this is one example, okay, to be able to obtain. Now, other modules, as you go through the text, you would see that other modules you can use, such as the GeoIP2. And you simply use pip3 install GeoIP2 in order to download and install it. That's if you're using Linux, and if you use the IDE, you just gotta bring in the packages. Most packages will work fine with Python ready IDE. Others, right, you would have to make sure that you link the files that's in the package. So to access the service provided by GeoIP2, this contains the database of information that would relate to the IP address. That's geolocation for the IP address. And another module that we can use is MaxMindDB GeoLite 2. And this allows you to also obtain geolocation. Okay. And this reads the MaxMindDB extension, which contains information about location about certain organization that's registered to the IP address. Okay, so for number 3, you can simply add the bullets or you can visit the site. So let's do that first so you can get the details. So here is the MaxMind. This is the GitHub information, right? And this, we can use the IP geolocation. However, they tell you here that it's somewhat unprecise, right? We can't rely on it 100%. You need to implement, or you need to install, okay, the API in order for the extension to read. But when you do the pip install, that should work as well. Okay. So there's some example on their GitHub in order to how to sync web services. And if you just simply getting information, you can use the script that's in the notes, but more of the extended example, that's what you use. So a lot of the times, you know, when you go to, you know, some of the browser, you can look up your actual location, right? It's going to be able to pinpoint. So a lot of the web services are linked together in order to support, you know, some of the app that we use or some of the resources that we use online. So for number 2, we can simply indicate that this is a web service, I should say that provides access to GeoIP2 and database. And to install, we would say pip3 install geoip2. For MaxMindDB, this is a reader. So we should say MaxMindDB reader, which provides I should just say extension information about geolocation. Okay. So it uses GeoLite 2, and you would have to incorporate this package or this module in your script in order for it to work. So let's take a look at that. So using GeoIP2 here in example 2, we would need to import geoip2.database if we're using it like the script. You also have socket because it needs to connect to the web services, and then you need to parse it. So you have to use argparse for argument parsing. Now we define the parser object here, and we want to put in the information host name, your host name, your destination host name, and then your domain. Okay. Now we can use the domain instead of an IP address, where we would use a fully qualified domain name. And so for this part right here, we simply set up who that host is, what kind of IP address, right? We would print out the IP address information from the host name and the domain information. Then we are going to make another object called reader, and this object is going to be a class object of reader from GeoLite 2. And it's gonna, the response is gonna be, it's gonna read, it is a reader from the IP address. So here, what that allows you to do is to use the IP address, right, compared to the database that's provided by the app or the web app to be able to print out the information. Okay, so it piggybacks on what the app is already provided, similar to the other web service. So we are going to print out country, continent, location for this example. So, okay, let's see, this is the one. So let me clear this, and keep in mind that in order to run this on your IDE, right? For example, I'm using Tawny, I have to install. So I would just go here, and then I find MaxMind. Oh, sorry, DB. And then install. Now, if you're just running it on Linux, you can, oh, it says process failed. I already have it. Maybe. If you're running it on Linux, you can just install it through pip. Okay, let's clear this. Let's see if I'm able to. Yeah, I can't bring this in. Okay, so probably best to use it on Debian Linux if you want to test this code. Okay, so socket, we already have argparse, we already have. We just need to make sure that we do pip3 install geoip2. And then once you install that, it should be able to access the database there. Let me see if I can install it. Okay. GeoIP2. Yeah, it keeps saying it's not able to provide file loader. Okay. So I can't run it on my ID at the moment. Okay, so that's one example, which is GeoIP2. This is the example for MaxMindDB GeoLite. So we are going to use GeoLite 2, and we're going to also use argparse JSON and socket. So those are the modules that you need to incorporate with this one. We want to be able to find the geolocation from the IP address. So here we simply are setting it up just like the previous example. You want to specify the host name that's going to store. These are going to be the arguments that's going to be added. Okay. Now, to parse the arguments, you would use the given args object, and then you would use the parse arg method, like what we talked about in the prior chapters. And so it's going to plug in this information into here, and then eventually down the line for your script. We are going to have a reader object, which is the GeoLite reader object. Okay. And it's gonna, similar to your last example, you are going to find the IP information based on the domain, and it's gonna print out the details or the geolocation for that particular system or server. Okay, so you have a couple of ways to go about doing it. You can use GeoIP2, or you can use GeoLite 2. Those are your options in Python. Any questions regarding geolocation? Now, this is not part of your project. However, you can use this for your work. If you're looking to do some investigation, this can definitely be useful understanding how to script. And it will show up on the final exam. Some of the scripts and the concept will be included in your final exam. Okay, so we're going to cover the encryption in 14, and then I will go over the final review the week before the final, and then you can work on your project and submit your final by week 16. Okay, so let's talk about metadata and information from certain file. We're going to do some cool script. So one of the things that we can find about images is going to be exchangeable image file format, or EXIF. This is going to give you the tag information about the camera that's used to take that picture, along with some copyright and geolocation data. And nowadays, the data that we can gather about that device can be important, especially in forensic investigation. So for example, someone had taken a picture, right, posted on social media. That picture is then downloaded by other people and shared on that same page. And something happened to that individual that took the picture. What can we do to obtain some information about that particular instance for that photo, the device that's used, and so on? So there are modules that we can implement to extract images. And to get the EXIF, you would have a dictionary that's going to store some tag information, and that's going to be what we're going to see as we would access that container to obtain the pieces of information. Now, important that we know that PIL, in the last chapter, we touched on PIL or Pillow or Python imaging library. This allows us to extract metadata from the images. So without PIL, we would not be able to do that. Okay. And so you need to install Pillow. And in Linux, we can use pip3 install Pillow or Windows. Okay. And it goes beyond that, right? The graphic side of PIL. So to use it with the ASIF tag or EXIF tag, we would then need to install Pillow. So for the next question, we can say that PIL is used to extract images that is apply. That have EXIF tags. Okay. And EXIF tags simply just indicate like the type of photo camera that was used, some details about that particular image. Okay, so this is why we want to install PIL and use PIL to obtain EXIF tag or EXIF tag. Any question? Okay, so coming back here, right, here is an example. You can obtain the tags from an image. So if we have an image, we can simply use the PIL module. Okay. And notice here that we are going to use EXIF tags from Pillow or PIL. Then we are going to access the image. So you are going to use image.open. This is simply a path. So for your exercise, when you put the image in the same folder as the script, you only would need to put the image file name in quotation mark. And we're using the get EXIF method. And remember that this is a dictionary, so it's going to use the items method. And we're going to print out the tag information. Okay, so in this example, the author has created a folder called images. And in that folder, right, would have multiple image files as JPEGs. And so would be able to access the directory and be able to pull up that file. Okay, so when I simply run this, which is a short script, I would get this information. Now, if you download a picture from the internet, right, like if you saw it on a web page and download it, if that picture is not taken by a certain camera, you know, then it will not be able to give you much of the tag information. So here it shows me that this image was originated in 2002 at this time. So if you want to find out like when that picture was taken, and it doesn't have the timestamp, because on the file, when you save the file, the timestamp of the file is a little bit different than when it was taken. So here it shows me the origination time was in 2002, the camera model and make, and then the copyright information, even some resolution. We do see some of that from the pixel side, and then so additional tags. Okay, and the software that's used is your Photoshop CS2, which is many versions ago. And then when it was modified in 2008, and the artist is copyrighted author. Okay. So you would see it would be a little different. Now, pertaining to geolocation, okay, we do have some information on that. So you can, now this is not 100% accurate, of course, right? It is, in general, it is all right, but we want to make sure that we want to get all additional details here. Okay, questions? So when they are evaluating images or doing forensic on images, even on a storage device, right? First, we would identify the file, then we would need to be able to examine the file. For the notes in the second script, for example, 2, where did you get the geolike.city? Let me see. Let me go back and take a look at example 2 real quick. Okay, yeah, I think it's in, I downloaded the script from the author. Let me see which folder. Yeah, so if you downloaded I think at the beginning, or if you use the publisher site, right? I downloaded the zip file and it contained all the chapters. So this is where I would get it from, this one. Okay, for the GeoIP. And if you downloaded that, it's under, oops, it's under GeoIP directory in chapter 13. Because it has a lot of different things in here. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so coming back to what we were saying, we can extract some information or EXIF tags for a photo. So what I'd like for you to do for the next one is you are going to use a smartphone, your smartphone, and you need to take a picture of something. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. Or if you already have a picture on your smartphone that you have taken, you can transfer it to your computer that you use to run the script, right, via email, or you can just sync it and save it onto the same folder where your script would be. You can refer to example 6 to be able to look at how you can write it. Okay, so here is the example 6. I simply, for this one, I just got to make sure that pill is installed. So if you did the last exercise on the Linux machine, you can run it on there, right? Or if you use the IDE. Okay. So I just need to look for a pill. And then I can install it. Okay. Let me see. I keep getting error. But however, it still works, I guess. Okay. So for number 4, I use the same reference, okay, as number 6. I would have import exread. Now exread or exifread is a little different than what you've seen in using pill. Okay, in this one, what it has is you can still do the same thing, right? But you can use a different module in order to do that. So using pill, you basically use image open, point to the file, and then print out the tag information. If you want to extract data, you can use the same module. Okay, you can also obtain image information and its tags. Now, on this example, it actually shows you how you can define a method using, members that, or creating objects that will be able to, for you to set it up where you would be able to access the tags. Okay. Now you can also provide GPS information. So if it is a smart device, you can definitely do that. So this will work well with camera system that is internet-based or IoT. Okay. So you can implement the script to be able to provide you the locations and also print out the metadata. Okay. So the metadata is really the data about the file. Okay, that is stored. So here it's going to use the OS module and it's going to access the image and give you the metadata information. So now compare this to the next part, or another module, which is exifread. You can create an object called file, and we're going to be able to access that. Remember that this has the folder and the file name. We only want just the file name if the file is stored within that same folder. Okay. And we want to process that file using the process file method. So we're going to access that file and obtain the tags information using the module. And we're going to print it out. So similarly, you would see this option or this option. You can achieve the same thing. Okay. And as I use this, I got to make sure that this is already installed using pip3. Okay. So with the data, you get a little bit more details. With just the image, it's just going to be like the photo information. So coming back to the notes, we saw that we can use pill. That's one example. We can use pill to obtain GPS information for that's included with the tags. And then for example 6, we use exifread module. Okay, so you can take example 6 script, which is not very long. Okay, you can modify this and put in the file. So let me show you what my folder looks like. I have my graduation picture. I put that there. So that was one of the files that I have on my computer that was taken from a camera. So just to put that there. And then because you can try it with the web downloaded image. So here's Dr. Grace Hopper picture that I downloaded from the internet. So if you try to use a JPEG file from a website, and if it's, you downloaded it, it would not be the same as something that you had taken with a photo camera. It won't be able to give you any kind of tag. See how the tags are empty here compared to here, right? Because of the camera, that it would give me a little bit more EXIF tags. Okay. So I saved my image file here, and my script is in the same folder. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and run that. Okay. So it tells me some information. Okay. Like the type of software I use, some resolution. So it has Windows photo editor information, you know. So you get a little bit more details here. And then when I open this up, it's going to give me the location. Okay, which pertains to the storage. All right. So you can try that by taking a photo and then storing it. Or if you have camera on your computer, right, you can turn your computer on and then camera on and then see if you can take a picture and then save it. And then use that picture to run the script and so you can see. But make sure that we have the proper name that we saved for that image, and it is in the same folder as your script. Otherwise, you would get an error. So unlike the example, you do see some difference there where it would give you more details, right? So these are the EXIF tags that the book talks about. Okay. Now, if I modify this, right, I'll show you. So I have Grace Hopper picture here, inventors dash Hopper. So let's say if I modify this, inventor is Hopper, and it's also a JPEG file. Notice that I don't get anything there. Okay. So you can see the difference in the type of picture that you're using. Okay, so for that question, we simply would run the script using the example 6 as a template and a photo that we took from a system that has a camera. Any question? So this is pretty cool in that we are able to find more details about the image more than what the file information has provided. Okay. No module. Yes. So you have to, make sure, I would suggest if you're using, are you in Linux or Windows? Okay. So Windows, it puts it in, it's a little funny that it puts it into a different location, and then if you run the script, it cannot find it. I suggest using like Python virtual environment to run it. So to install and then put in the script and run it. Yeah, I'm getting the same thing on my IDE, but it's able to even though it says, it exit return 1, but it's able to still run the script. Yeah, because if you're using command prompt, right? Okay, you got to go to the directory where your, so if I do install EX, I have here. Yeah, what happens is it's in the directory for your user account like this. Okay. So this is where you need to create your script and run and all of that. Otherwise, if you store your script somewhere else, it's not going to be able to find it. Okay. And also the way that you can resolve that is to set up your system path, and because it's going to put it in this location where your Python executables are at. So if you set up your system path, then it won't have much of an issue. Yeah, that's a little clunky on the Windows side. You just gotta know where the path your stuff is at. You're welcome. Yeah, on the Linux side, it's more seamless, but you still just think about which folder did you install that package in, and then how you would use that folder with your script. Okay. Now let's talk about PDF. So PDF is widely used. We know that there are information that we can obtain for metadata purposes. So in the case if you're investigating fraudulent information, or even extracting some information about the PDF form, PDF files, that could be important. Okay, so there are several modules that we can use. Some of the book highlight a couple of them. One of the module is PyPDF2. Okay. Now, the metadata information is about the file, like the software that's used to create or modify the file. So when you're investigating for forensic purposes, that could be important. Okay. You can use this module or the library to do a lot of things. You can use it to merge, to crop, to transform the pages. So some software application actually uses this to modify or edit PDF. It can also be used to implement protection like password for the file. And we can use it to retrieve text and metadata. So to install it, we would do a pip3 install PyPDF2. Now the example 7 shows you that you can import PyDF2 classes. And then we are also using OS path, stat, and there are other elements of PDF2 or PyPDF2. So after that, we would define the method. So you are going to obtain the data. It's going to look for the file, and it's going to iterate through. It's going to take, right, the metadata information, and it's going to print that. Then we set up another object called PDF reader. And again, we're going to use the class to be able to access what we previously obtained to print. The information is then, so the result from this is going to be stored into info. we're going to take info and then the container and iterate through it and print out the metadata. Okay. And then we would go into the layout for the page layout because it is a document. Now we're not looking at text, we're looking at the metadata for that PDF. So it would look at contributor, identifier, you know, the details about that document metadata. Okay. And then we also look at the status of that particular file. And then we call the method in the main. Oh, did I not include A? Maybe I didn't save it accordingly. Okay, so that's one way. Another way that we can talk about is to use PyMu PDF. So PyMu or PyMu PDF. And through this package, we can use fits module. Okay. So you would simply need to have a PDF file, and here we would say that this file is in this folder. Okay, and that's for the PDF document container. We're going to access it using fits.open. It's going to show us the number of pages. Okay. So we can do a page count there. And then we can print out some text information. At the very least, right, this gives you the overall information about that particular document as a PDF. So let's take a look at that. Oh, this is, yeah. Okay. So let me clear this. I might run into issue, yeah. So I was having, let me see if I can reinstall it. New PDF. So you need to install the package. Okay. I don't think you can find, you don't need fits because it's under that, but okay, I'll install it too. Yeah, I'm getting a return error code 1 there. Let's see if this is, okay, so it works. So install the PyMu PDF, okay. And then if I want to look at a certain page here, because I'm asking the user, so in the script, it's gonna tell you how many pages is found. And then, so for example, like student catalog that you download from MVC or RCC, and then you can run the script against that catalog file, and then you can put in the page number. So let's say if I want to look for page 4, right, it's gonna load some information about the text from page 4, okay? So not too bad. I mean, you know, you can expand the script to go a little bit further. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and go to mvc.edu. And then I'm going to download the catalog and see if that works. Okay. So we can download this. All right, then I'm going to go to my downloads. And then I'm going to copy. And I'm going to go to my folder where my script's going to be, and I'm going to paste it. For the sake of the exercise, I'm going to rename this MVC cat. Okay. So for the next question, it tells you to use number 9 on Unit 3, 13 notes. We are going to use PyMu PDF module. We're going to extract some text information from the file. Okay. Make sure that you put the file and the script in the same folder. So for exercise 5, let me move this on. I had tested it with the flyer, which only has 1 page, but I'm going to do MVC cat.pdf. So making sure that I have let's run the script and see first. Okay, so same as we talked about before, it's going to count up my pages and it's going to go to a certain page number that the user would input and get some text information. So we're going to run this. Right, so the catalog has 298 pages. So I'm going to go to page 105, for example. Right, and here you can see that because we're not in, also the encoding, you're going to get a bunch of symbol if it can't interpret it. So when it's trying to read it, right, it's only able to give you the text information, which is mostly ASCII. And then for the symbols that's beyond it, right, it's going to give you something like this. But basically, right here, it shows me some degree information and catalog information for certificates. Okay, so you can do something like that. You can download a PDF, like an ebook on PDF is good. Okay, just make sure that files is, in the same folder as your script. You can do the page count. You can look at a certain page with text information. So you can try that for exercise 5. Any question? Let me rerun this and then see page 50. Okay, so this page is a little better, right? I collaborated on this certificate with one of the ESL faculty. So it shows them ESL courses on this page. Okay. There you go. Not too slow. It's able to get most of the text out here. We can go to a certain page to read it. Okay. Now you can also use this to extract image. Okay. So for example 10, we can use fits. And again, we'll just use the open method from fits to be able to access the file. So in this example, we have a folder called PDF, and inside it, it has XMP specification part 3.pdf. Then it would go through the document. It's gonna use get page image list. So it's gonna look at which page that would have the image. And then it's gonna access the first image. Then it's gonna be able to give you the page information. Now, depending on the content of the PDF, so you have to be mindful of that. Okay. So let's test it. Let me see. Okay, so this is the example. We're gonna go ahead and run that. I'm getting a deprecation for the package that was pulled. And you might get something like, what was it, PyMove? See if I need to rerun the installation here. It's always a little touchy. Yeah. So it's not able to use this. So let me see. Get page image list removed from the class document after version 1.19. Okay, so we can just modify that real quick. So we just changed to get page images instead of get page image list. So we replace this with get page images. Oops. I think that's the only place. Run this. Also write PNG. So they had updated this. So here we can replace that with PixMap. Oh, did I not fix PixMap? No attribute for PixMap. You save what PNG remove from the, oh, duh, it says save. And then I gotta do that in both spots. Okay, so based on the example script, we would need to replace this line right here, this one, and this one, because these are depreciated. And then we gotta replace this one. Okay. So I changed that. So let me see if that's successful and not throw any more error. Yeah, so on the new method, it's just gonna, we probably have to have it printed because it's just gonna look at this. So it's not gonna output any text for you there. Okay, so for 6, I thought I test. Okay, we're going to use example 10. We're going to extract the text from the PDF file using FITS module. Okay. Did I meant to say image? Okay. So let's look at my example 6. So I'm using what was provided. Okay. I have for the image, I'm using import fits. My document, I just have it open using fits open method and the file name. Keep in mind that this file is in the same module, or I mean the same directory as the script. Otherwise, make sure you put in the full path. Like the last example, I am going to access, right, the actual PDF and be able to identify where, right, how many, all the entire document to access the image. Okay. And then I will be able to identify where that is or what that is. Oh, it's giving me this again, but I had ran it earlier. But anyway, so what you want to do is you want to fix a few things like what we had done in the previous example. You need to make sure that when you're using the example script, you got to change the get page images, okay? Because that's what it says here, your get page image list. This has gone, it's gone, so you're not going to be able to access that particular method. In the new version, you are going to use this method. So that's what we have to fix right here. Then we're going to fix the second thing, your write PNG. It's going to be, we're going to replace that as save. So that was at 2 place, save here, and then save here. So the pics and the pics1, we need to replace those methods. Okay. Now you can refer to the documentation. Let me see if I can find. Okay. So here it shows you how you can do the install. There's some example. You can go to the actual manual by looking at the documentation. So this walks you through the user guide. Okay. So if you go to metadata, there's some example on how you can do that. So we spend a little bit more time on this on the lab where we run it on Linux, where it's a little bit more friendly. Okay. So you can implement where it would be able to go access the pages, you know, add to the actual pages if you do have the options to add on the PDF with your applications. So there are ways that you can implement this for, you know, and then for encryption and decryption and other things. So this tool is somewhat versatile in a lot of areas outside of just finding the details like in metadata. Okay. Yeah, you can crop and transform. Okay. So for 6, let me change this. Get page images. And then I wanted to change this to save. Oh, I have typo right here, syntax. Okay. Now this can be better. Of course, we want to be able to maybe output some information about the XREF, right? And the image information. Any question? Also for the lab this week, we are going to work a little bit more on a browser, especially with Firefox. We can implement some additional technology to be able to examine images that's being pulled by the browser. As you know, in forensic, a lot of the times people can view pictures. They also use browser to download pictures, of course. So in that, like if you're looking at things that could be related to fraud, sexual harassment, child pornography, things like that, where we have to do investigation and be able to build the reports for court or organizational purposes, then we can implement some of the tools that will be that has been discussed in this particular chapter. So there are a few things that you would see in how we are looking at web content and some of the web technology, like Wix. Wix is one. I think you would see some like wallpaper. So W Appleizer, this is to identify the technology on the website. You can find information about a certain website. So in here, I can, let's use something that has a little bit more content. Now this is, my website URL. Let me see if I can find, oh, let's use this and test it. Okay, so it's able to find it. So it's going to build out the technology stack from that particular site, and then it's going to give you the details. Sometimes it's a little slow, as in certain organization, they would provide or not provide some information. So here, as you can see, it tells you that it works across different browsers and also, you know, type of tools, as these are the tools that are very common with web app environment. Okay, so it's still going like this. So you can test a URL and then you can be able to get some information or get the report. So now what we can do is we can take a look at the second. I said website build environment. Okay. So again, we can also do something like that here. So in the back, we can take a look at the technology on what was used to build these sites, right? So if you're doing investigation on website technology, you can, so they have here, you can see that they have Google Analytics. There's some plugins, font API, and so on. Search box, reCAPTCHA, and so on, okay? And this could be integrated for mobile apps. So you would see there's mobile app and then WordPress. So getting this information is probably the preliminary before, like last week we talked about running the tools assessment for the WordPress. So here we would know, oh, okay, we can use tool for that. And then for the engine, so the type of servers, and of course, we can dive a little deeper on, this type of server and what kind of flaws or issues. Encoding, the type of HTML support, and so on. Now, keep in mind that not all websites would disclose a lot of the details. Some of them, they will block it. Okay. And then you can take a look at also security policy and so on. So these links are helpful to really kind of have a general understanding on what technology is used. And sometimes when you're looking at web app assessment or forensic, you have to start with this and be able to get a little deeper into each individual tool. Any question? Okay, so those are some of that's why I meant to put website building technology. I meant to put that. So for the technology, you can use, those are 2 examples. Okay. Unified type of web services. I should rephrase that, but it will do for now. So for the last question, we simply would be able to use one of those tools that we looked at. Okay. Any question? So you can use WAppalizer or built with. I think Wig is also another one. And you can test it with a couple of sites. Okay, so for the lab this week, we're going to work on writing a couple Python script or using the script to be able to evaluate browsers and files and also geolocation. So we will come back to the geolocation here as we didn't do too much Python there, and then add on to the PDF section and also the browser. Okay. Any question? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop.